guys, welcome to the Turnout Wizard. Our first edition is going to be something that has grown close to my heart since I bought a horse with a really long name. This is Proby the Andalusian, and I thought really good information would be to learn the difference between a running braid and a French braid and how to effectively do both. So what you need to put in any type of braid is a stool, first and foremost. It's really important for the health and safety of the horse and also your health and safety that you be able to elevate yourself to their level. This is so you don't scare them when you reach up. As you see here, Proby doesn't seem to like that very much. So I always work on a stool whenever I'm working on their mane. So step first is the stool. Step two is a brush. You have to, before you braid anything, make sure you get the mane in really, really good condition. So first things first is to brush it. And then the other thing you'll need for either a running or a French braid are simple braiding bands. I like to end the braid with 2 bands. It's simply more secure. So first step, brush the mane really thoroughly. Hi, buddy. As you see, I'm parting the mane up here. There's no real rule. With horses like Andalusians, Fresians, any Iberian breed, some of the gypsy horses, there's no real rule as to where you part it. It's just where the halter sits best. Okay, so I choose to part my horse's hair right underneath the halter. That helps keep it, it just sits the best. Or where your bridle would be for the riding part. So, start at the bottom. Work your way up and get all the tangles out of your horse's face. A good trick is to keep running your fingers through it to see if you've gotten through it. Mr. Proby here has a very, very thick mane, so he might take a little bit longer than your horse. Which is why, if you're wondering why, I am a professional groom, I swear. I'm not worrying too much about losing hair. He's got an excess amount of hair. So for him, this acts as a little bit of thinning without actually pulling his hair. Best test I find is to find the thickest part of the hair and try to braid it or get your brush through from underneath. You can get the brush smoothly through from underneath. You've probably done a pretty good job, and it's probably tangle-free enough to braid. Sorry, buddy. Okay, so first things first, how do you choose which braid you want to do? In my experience, several years of braiding long manes, I found that Proby says hello. I have found that the thicker the mane, the easier it is to keep a running braid in. That's a simpler, easier braid to do. You're able to do it looser so that the horse has more freedom of movement in the neck. And also, on the other side, the thinner the mane, the more appropriate and the more effective it is to do a French braid. And that's because you can get it really close to the mane, really close to the base and really tight all the way down, and it keeps much better. So we'll do the easier one, the running braid, first. All right. You want to get close up? So follow my hands. In a running braid, you start. Proby has a very, very thick mane. So the thicker the mane, the more hair you begin with. But you start with a decent fistful of hair. You part it into 3 equal parts. And you begin like you would begin any normal braid. Now, this first part can be really close to the mane. You continue on for the first crossover as if it were a normal braid. Then, each time the crossover is coming from underneath, you add a piece of hair. When the crossover is going on top, you don't add hair. So, arguably, you add hair every other crossover. If you know You notice I'm starting like as consistent is every piece is the same size, as long as the hair is the same thickness. It's also really important to remember, on top of keeping in mind the thickness of the mane that you're pulling from, the tension all the way through, maintaining tension back into the braid itself. That's what gives you that really pretty, consistent, secure look. And this takes a lot of practice. And don't be ashamed to practice with your horse and do 50, 100, 10,000 of these, however many it takes to get them right. And everybody has their own process. Everybody figures out how their own fingers work a little bit different. So the way my fingers work may not be the perfect way for you. So as I get down the mane, if you've noticed, his mane's getting a little bit thinner. So the pieces I'm adding in are getting a little bit thinner. The good news with these braids is, if you find that there's an inconsistency somewhere down the mane, here it got a little close to the neck for my liking, you can always adjust them really gently so your horse doesn't object. You can always adjust them and make a section longer if you need to. It keeps it nice and even. Now it's important in these that you braid as far down as possible. That contributes to the look of the horse's neck. The longer his neck looks, the more elegant he looks. So for workout purposes and schooling purposes, I simply end these braids with a couple of rubber bands. I like to braid them all the way down for a nice sleek look. And with the 2 braiding bands that I've kept on my finger, I end it by wrapping it 3 to 4 times. And there you have, if you want to come from the side and give it a side view, you'll see when he arches his neck for dressage position, you have a nice consistent running braid to work with. Okay, so now that you know the running braid, we're going to show you the slightly harder but much more secure braid, the French braid. This is the one that appears to be sitting on top of the mane as it goes down. Again, this braid is really, really nice for thinner manes or for horse shows. I really like them for horse shows because they stay really secure for a long period of time. So you'll need the same supplies. Your mane brush, which we've already talked about. Again, make sure the mane is brushed. We've already done that, so we don't have to repeat that. And you're going to need, for schooling purposes, your braiding bands. Hi. And a beautiful horse with a long mane to practice on. So, this one starts the same way. As a rule, this braid starts a little bit smaller. So you take a bit of a smaller section than before. Again, this one stays quite tight to the neck. So you start it real small so you can apply the appropriate amount of tension. Once again, you start the same way with 3 equal sections of mane. And you start it just like any other braid. Now, here's where the difference comes in. Instead of adding from the mane every other crossover, you add every single crossover. So that means you add from underneath, like so, when you go to cross over the front of the mane. Okay, and from the other aspect, so you can see, you add just like the running braid when you go to flip over the back of the mane or cross over the back of the mane. But you also add from underneath when you go to cross over your front section. So these stay very tight and very close to the mane. The trick with these is when you grab the excess section from underneath, that section goes as tight as you can to the mane. This holds the French braid really close to the head. And then when you go to add from the back, that one can stay a little bit looser. So it positions the braid like so. So once again, when you add from underneath, that section is really tight and close to the mane. And then when you add from behind or on top, however you look at it, that can remain a little bit larger and a little bit looser than the underneath section. I look at this underneath addition as the anchor. This anchors the braid to the horse's neck. And I look at this, the top add, as the aesthetic section, the one that makes it look pretty. So this one is your anchor. Still of about equal size. You want to keep adding about equal size all the way through. And that one makes it look nice. So with horses like Proby with a very, very thick mane, these are a little bit more difficult, especially as the mane gets thicker toward the middle. However, they do have a lovely, really secure appearance and much more professional appearance, in my opinion, for horse shows. Really get that nice tight anchor. Don't worry about stray hairs. They tend to work themselves out. You can pull your hand through the mane several times to keep it free from too many tangles. Again, this underneath section, get really tight to the mane. That's the most important thing. That's going to take some practice. It's really important to remember to use your thumbs to hold the tension in the braid as you take your other hand off to add mane. So keep your thumb on the braid here as you take your other hand off to add a section. See my thumb? It's holding that nice and steady so I don't lose any tension that I've already built in the braid. I replace it with my other thumb and add mane. As you can see, all my fingers are holding everything in place. That's the most important part. That's what keeps you from losing tension and losing all the thoughtful work you've already put in. And if you take a look at how my elbows are positioned, don't be afraid to really turn your body to really get the braid in the right shape. This is going to fatigue your arm, let me tell you. It's all worth it. Beautiful. But it's worth it for a beautiful horse show braid. Now as you finish, keep shape of the braid until you're done. That gives it a more elegant finish, bending it down to guitar. There you have it. I think you can tell why I prefer the French braid to be running braid for horses. Nope. Especially on a horse with a thick mane, you can just see the security, you can see the tautness, and you can see that it's got a lot of even a lot of life, and it moves with that horse much more elegantly to it. Go.